I call this one Don't Look Up. This occurred in 1947, right at the dawn of the modern age of UFOs, near Langley. This is in British Columbia, Canada. And this one involves the praying mantis type ETs. And yes, there's some very extensive interactions with this one, and it's a very unusual case for sure. This case comes from well-respected and pioneering researcher Graham Conway of the UFO British Columbia UFO Group, UFO-BC, and it involves a witness who has insisted upon absolute anonymity. In fact, he only came forward to share his encounter many years after it happened. It affected him quite profoundly. As he says, "Some of the terror has lessened, and although it has been blanked out of my life, I would have flashbacks and relive it." So yeah, this really affected him. And here's what happened. It was a hot day in the spring or summer of 1947. The witness was 16 years old. At the time, he lived with his brother and mother on the border of Cloverdale and Langley, this is in British Columbia, Canada, along what would be called the Trans-Canada Highway. At this time it was a very rural area with very few homes, lots of trees, and flat farmland. Now the witness and his younger brother were outside playing in the creek that ran by their home. His younger brother was actually in the creek catching minnows, while the witness sat under a nearby tree reading a book. And as the witness says, it was very quiet. I had heard a hum, but I thought nothing of it. The next I knew, a silver gray, and what I know of today was a UFO, sat down right in front of me. So this affected him in a very weird way. The witness says he fell into what he calls a, quote, blank state. He kind of kept slipping in and out of consciousness. And this went on for some time. He estimates about an hour, but he's really not sure. But he certainly did see what happened next. As he says in his own words, "A door opened, I believe from bottom to top, and out walked 4 or 5 grotesque creatures, looking like praying mantis, wearing dull silver gray body-fitted coverings. No buttons, zippers, nothing. By this time I had stood up, and I still held my book. One creature came right to me and stood looking at me, took my book and looked at it. It put its hands on my shoulder. It could read my thoughts. Everything I thought of, it knew. It was so terrifying. It looked into my eyes deeply, and I am certain I could hear the black eyes click, just like a camera. Now when this happened, he suddenly felt this weird wave of calmness. From behind him, he heard his mother shouting at him frantically, and he told her to get away, telling her that she might get shot if she didn't go back into the house, which she did. Now, the witness then had the distinct impression that, quote, they were here due to the wars and bombs, end quote. At this point, the creature left the witness and rejoined the others, all of who began to walk around the UFO inspecting it. And the witness had the impression that there was a problem with the front door area. He feels quite sure about this and that they were trying to fix it. He did notice that there were many cars passing along the highway, pretty much in full view of the object, and he thought to himself, the silly fools, meaning the ETs, don't they realize someone driving by will be able to see them and the large silver dome? So this was quite a large craft apparently. But strangely, no cars stopped. In fact, nobody appeared to see this large craft or the Mantid beings. The encounter wasn't over yet. As the witness says, the creature came right back to me, looked into my eyes, and that hand on my shoulder said by telepathy, "We are leaving now. Do not look up, do not look up, do not look up." My head was down on my chest, and the next thing I heard was a hum. I thought, yes, I can look up. I will look up. And there it was, at the top of the tree, right over my head, going up quickly into a sky that had about 4 military planes going faster than I have ever seen. So he's watching this UFO leave. He sees all these planes. He could hear them roaring quite loudly. They were all chasing after the craft. He decided at this point that other people must have seen the craft, otherwise why would the planes be there? But as he watched, the UFO quickly outdistanced the jets, darting off to the south towards Washington state. Now once it had left, he called out to his little brother, who appeared to be in a trance, just standing there in the creek. As the witness says, he did not move. I had to step into the creek, take him by the hand, call his name, and said, "We will go home now." So the two boys went inside, and this is when they discovered that their mother was quite angry that they had stayed out so long. The witness and his brother reported at this point that they had an unquenchable thirst and could not drink enough water. The witness then went directly to bed. He says that upon waking, he found that his skin was bright red, painful. Aspirin, he said, did little to relieve the pain, and this affected him for days, if not weeks. He remained pretty much in bed for a few weeks. Finally, after he was able to get up and walk around, he looked outside of the house, and he did discover evidence that a craft had in fact landed where he saw it. As he says, "I could see from the kitchen window a large circle of burnt or black grass. 3 months later, we moved away. I have never spoken to anyone about this and find it very hard to write about. I started a journal a few years ago and could not finish it." Now the witness said that he had to condense this story, which he wrote in a letter to Graham Conway, and that there were quite a few more details to it. Thanks again to Graham Conway for bringing this case to us. I do wish the witness had provided the full story because, apparently there's more to it. And I really wonder about that. It's just so interesting because it's such an early encounter. And there we see, once again, all the way back then even, ETs apparently warning people about war and aggression and this sort of thing. So that I found a very interesting detail to this account. Also, his physiological reactions were kind of interesting. Perhaps he was exposed to radiation from the craft. Hard to say for sure, but definitely an interesting case.